Okay, today we are comparing the Boost Mobile LG Venice from Boost Mobile. It retails for $199, and the LG Extreme from Straight Talk, which retails for $149. Now, the reason why I decided to make this video and compare these phones is because unless you have these phones side by side in hand, and if you just look on the website without looking at the specs, if you look at their respective websites without looking at the specs, um, you might think that these phones are basically the same. But uh, once you take a look at both of these phones, you'll notice that there's quite a bit of difference between them. Now, starting off with the Venice, this is a 1 gigahertz phone. It's from Boost Mobile. This is a CDMA phone, 3G. It's got Android 4.0, 1 gigahertz processor, and 5 megapixel camera. It does have a front-facing camera as well. And the layout and the basic design is basically this new, or relatively new, design from LG, which they've introduced within the last year or two, which is basically very square. And you'll find capacitive touch buttons at the bottom with that now familiar push button in the middle. Now going to the LG Extreme from Straight Talk, again, same overall square design. You got your capacitive touch buttons at the bottom with that push button in the middle. Now the Extreme is a 4-inch screen. It's 800 megahertz, also running Android 4.0. It also has a 5 megapixel camera, but it does not have a front-facing camera, as you can see here. So the LG Extreme from Straight Talk is a little bit more basic, and it's obvious by the price because it's also $50 less. Now, in the looks department, the phones, again, looking at it from like this kind of view, you might think they're both the same, but they're actually different. The LG Venice has a more attractive chrome bezel around the screen. The back is all silver, so textured. Battery cover. But again, the layout is the same in that you have your volume on the left, your usual headphone jack, power button, again, nice chrome trim on the top here, and charge button or charge port on the bottom. It does not have a dedicated camera button. Now moving on to the Extreme here, again, volume button on the left, headphone jack on the top, power/lock button. Again, no dedicated camera button, and of course the charge port at the bottom. Now the bezel around this phone is more of a black chrome kind of look to it, if you will. So it doesn't stand out quite as much as the Venice. The back is a textured black plastic battery cover. As I mentioned, the camera on the Extreme, it's just the main rear-facing camera, so it doesn't have that front-facing camera. And the buttons at the bottom are identical to the Venice in that you got your physical button in the middle, and again the capacitive touch to either side of that. So basically the phones are pretty much the same dimensions. If you measure them, the width, both phones are about 2.6 or so. Thick, on the thickness, both of them measure around 0.4, a little bit less than half. Now the Venice here looks a little bit thinner, just because of the way that the battery cover is designed. But if you were to measure these phones, you'll find that they're both the same thickness. Now, the only difference between the phones, dimensional or dimensions wise, is the fact that the Venice, being that it's got a larger screen, is about maybe a quarter of an inch taller. Um, and of course, the Venice got the 4.3-inch screen, whereas the Extreme here, it's got the 4.0 screen. So overall, pretty much same layout, same design phones on both of these. Now, I do like the Venice a little bit more, personal taste wise, just because I like the chrome bezel. I like the silver battery cover. It just looks like a more sophisticated phone to me. Now, that's not to say that the Extreme here is an ugly phone. It's fairly attractive. It's just not, doesn't stand out as much. Now, performance-wise, both of these phones are running the latest Android 4.0, aka Ice Cream Sandwich. So you get pretty much the same UI on both of these phones, or the user interface. Pretty much same functionality on both of these phones. But keep in mind that the LG Venice is a 1 gigahertz processor, so you probably aren't gonna get the sense of it on the video. But the LG Venice here on the left just is a little bit quicker to scroll. It's not. It's hard to tell in the video, but if you had both of these phones, you'll notice the difference. That the LG Venice just performs just a tad better than the Extreme here, and of course that's the 200 megahertz difference in the processor, which really makes the difference. Now, as far as the interface goes, both of these phones are from different companies, so the interfaces are different. I like the Boost interface a little bit more. So again, a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more modern. Whereas the Straight Talk is pretty straightforward. You got the same kind of icons. Right above the main icons. But the main icons, as you can see on the Venice from Boost, they're just a little bit nicer than the Straight Talk ones. And really that's the main difference between the interface, because the apps, being that they're both Android 4.0, are basically the same. Boost gives you a couple of little extras, but they're really not worth mentioning, to be honest. All the main stuff like YouTube, Google Maps, Google Play, the same on both of the phones. And the only thing you'll notice if you had these phones side by side, again, is that the Venice performs just a little bit faster than the Extreme. Now, much to the credit of the Extreme, being that it's got a 200 megahertz handicap, it performs really nice. It performs a whole lot better than the previous Straight Talk 2.3 Androids before this. So, being that it's 200 megahertz less, the Extreme performs very nicely. Now, if you're considering these phones, be aware that Boost has a $55 unlimited plan for Android. You get 2.5 gigs of data, which is really what everybody's concerned about these days. Straight Talk doesn't really publish their data. It's quote unquote unlimited, but of course it's not really unlimited when it comes to data. So you can probably expect maybe 2 gigs with Straight Talk. Now, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, the Venice is a CDMA phone, so you would be activated using the Sprint coverage area, whereas the Extreme is a GSM phone, so you would be activated with either AT&T or perhaps T-Mobile, depending on what's in your area with Straight Talk. But both are 3G, so you'll get pretty much the same data speeds. So basically, to sum it up, and if you really were to, if I were to pick one over the other, I would definitely pick the LG Venice. It's a much nicer looking phone. It performs a lot smoother. I don't want to say a lot smoother, but noticeably smoother. I like the bigger screen without it being, you know, much bigger than the Extreme. I like the interface a whole lot better. It's just a little bit nicer than the Straight Talk one. The Straight Talk one's, I want to say, a little bit dated. Their icons just aren't as nice. And in the looks department, I like the Venice better just because I like that chrome trim and the silver back to it. Whereas the Extreme here is not, doesn't pop quite as much. So about the only other factor in terms of choosing which one is the price of the calling plan. Boost is $55, $55 a month. Straight Talk is $45, so that's a $10 difference. So that's up to you as to which one to go for. And before you choose, you might want to consider what coverage you have in your area and which coverage is better, either GSM. If you have better GSM coverage, go with the Extreme. If you have better CDMA coverage and you want a nicer phone and don't mind paying the extra $10 a month, and paying $50 more for the Venice, then go for the Venice. But if you're gonna pick solely on the basis of performance, looks, then the clear winner is the LG Venice from Boost Mobile.